member for Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, thanks very much, Madam Speaker. I'd just like to note that my good friend, the honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable, will share time with me. I want to just quickly jog the House's memory about the 13th report from the Standing Committee on Government Operations, what it is that I believe is so important that we discuss today. And before I give you the details of that report, I want to provide a bit of context about what the situation is in Canada today. Statistics Canada released this summer just really devastating numbers about what we can expect this fall for food bank usage. 1 in 4 Canadians saying that they're going to be relying on food banks to feed themselves and their families, so 25%. Now, what's so interesting and truly heartbreaking about that is that we don't have a 25% unemployment rate. And the reason I bring up the employment rate, which is about 6% in this region, we know that it's high among new Canadians and students at about 12%, 25%. So, Madam Speaker, at 25% of people using food banks, well, that means that we have people who are working 1 in 2 jobs who still aren't able to feed themselves and to feed their families. I can tell you in my community that the Brockville Area Food Bank, the South Grenville Food Bank, the Gananoque Food Bank have seen their use double, and this is the trend that we've seen across the country. So Canadians are struggling. We have food banks extending their hours to be able to serve people when they get off their shift before they go into their next job. And with that as the backdrop, let's take a look at what this government prioritized. We uncovered, through the work of common sense conservatives, the grift and corruption that has festered after 9 years of the NDP-Liberal government. And we saw a very public case of that with the Arrive scam, where GC Strategies, these 2 grifters working out of a basement, were taking 30% of multi-million-dollar contracts and adding no value for Canadians. Now, this report was the request to the AG to conduct a performance audit. And this came out of the GC Strategies scandal, the Arrive scam, the NDP-Liberal government's Arrive scam. It's devastating for Canadians to see that, well, the government, they make all kinds of claims about being compassionate or wanting to help Canadians. Well, the Canadians they're helping are Liberal insiders. They're the elite, making millions of dollars. And what's shocking, I think, to Main Street Canadians is that when this was uncovered, the Liberal government didn't say, oh my goodness, we are so surprised and we agree, we want to get to the bottom of this so that we can ensure it never happens again. We put forward a motion. The member for Carleton, the leader, the now leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition, put forward a motion almost 2 years ago to have the Auditor General investigate. What did the Prime Minister do? He voted against. What did his cabinet do? Voted against. What did all of the Liberal members do? They voted against having the Auditor General get to the bottom of his $60 million Arrive scam. $60 million. And they like to talk about, oh, you know, this app saved, we've famously heard that it saved lives. I'll tell you what it did. It sent 10,000 people under house arrest because of a glitch in this app. You know, if they had spent some money credibly developing a product that Canadians knew they needed and knew worked well, and didn't send thousands of people, 10,000 people into house arrest, no, they might have had a little goodwill, but the app was broken. Canada Border Service Agency frontline officers said that it took away resources from them, that they weren't consulted on it. So the experts, the boots in the boxes at our border, they told us, we don't want it. It impedes us from doing our job to keep Canadians safe, but they knew better. Why did they insist on this $60 million boondoggle if frontline border service officers said they didn't need it? Because their buddies were getting paid. Liberal insiders lining their pockets. And remember, Canadians lining up at food banks. This is an incredibly important issue. It's emblematic of 9 years of the NDP-Liberal government. This is what happens when you have a Prime Minister twice found guilty of breaking the law. Twice. It's never happened in this country before. And so that's the standard from the top down that we've seen under this Prime Minister. And so it's no surprise that Canadians are calling for action. Canadians are speaking out. Canadians are expressing their disapproval in this government. And Conservatives, in response to those calls, we've said we want to have a carbon tax election. We want to give Canadians the choice between an out-of-touch government that rewards their friends and raises taxes on Canadians when they can least afford it, or the common-sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. It was a pleasure yesterday to welcome in our new colleague from Toronto St. Paul, and there's a message in that for this Prime Minister as well. But until we have that carbon tax election, and that's going to be up to the Conservatives, we've said that we're going to put forth a motion of non-confidence in this government at the first available opportunity. So it's going to be up to the NDP and the Bloc to make a decision on if they stand with a government that rewards insiders or stands up for Canadians who are working hard, taking care of their neighbors, just desperately trying to provide for their families and have a better life. That was the promise in this country, that if you worked hard, you'd be able to have a good life, you'd be able to afford a home. And always we thought that as Canadians, that we'd be able to welcome people into our country and that we'd be able to work together and we'd be able to afford homes and we'd be able to do better than the generation before us. But after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, they've broken the immigration system. They're bringing people here under false pretenses, telling them that, that there's going to be a home and a doctor for them. There's neither of those things, nor jobs. So this is why we need to keep doing the important work of exposing what the economic vandalism, the vandalism to trust in our democratic institutions that's happened after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government and that Prime Minister. And we'll keep doing that every single day until we have that election. Because that's what Canadians are counting on. That's what I heard from the thousands of Canadians that I talked to this summer. And I know that's what my colleagues heard. So, Madam Speaker, it's important that we have this conversation we have this debate about this important subject today. I look very forward to the comments from my honourable colleague from Mégantic-L'Érable because, his community, the residents of his province are suffering terribly And he knows, and he was connecting with them this summer, and I look forward to his perspective as well, because, Madam Speaker, Canadians deserve better than a corrupt NDP-Liberal government, and common sense Conservatives are going to bring home real change.